Hello and welcome to the Motorway Man, and welcome back to my series on all the service station operators. Last time round we looked at Welcome Break, so make sure to watch that video if you haven't already, and make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss any future episodes. So in today's show we'll be looking at the biggest service station operator in the UK, and that's Moto. So some basic facts to start us off. Moto's newest site is Rugby on the M6. Their headquarters is based in Toddington on the M1. Their biggest site is their newest, Rugby. Their smallest is Tiverton on the M5, although not for too much longer, as Moto have submitted planning applications to enhance and extend Tiverton services to bring it up to scratch with their more other modern goods sites. And their most popular sites have got to be Wetherby, Cherwell Valley and Toddington. So, let's get into the video, and as always with these things guys, we will be starting with the history. So, Moto are the largest service station operator in the UK and are a lot newer than you may think. Moto were founded in 2001, but Moto's oldest service station is from 1963, so it's clear their history goes back much further. So, most of Moto's sites pre-2001 belong to Granada. Yes, Granada plays a role in the history of Moto, as it did the history of Welcome Break. As we can recall, Granada was a major player, and by 1995 they owned 80% of all the service stations on the market here. This led to them being investigated by the Monopolies and Mergers Commission, now known as the Competition Commission, who said that Granada were being unfair and had taken away all the competition and thus could no longer provide customers with the same level of good service. So beginning in 1996, Granada began, on orders of the Commission, to sell some of their service stations, and by the year 2000, Granada had sold over 35 service stations and could no longer sustain themselves in this way, so therefore they lost quite a lot of investment, and Granada decided that having the remaining services was just not as profitable as it once was. So in 2001, Granada ended for financial reasons, and all the sites that were left were acquired by another company, and they introduced the name Moto. So there we go, that's how Moto starts. And beginning in May 2001, Moto were beginning to brand their own service stations, and they were what was left of Granada. Now, the rise and fall of Granada is a very interesting topic, which I'll be covering in a special episode this Sunday, so make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss it. Anyway, back to Moto. So now as a new operator, usually you would have to build your way up slowly, but unlike roadchef or extra, Moto already started with 30 service stations, the ex-Granada ones, so that's really good. But the downside is that most of them were old, tired and in need of renovation. So Moto spent the first few years of their ownership renovating their old service stations, and after all the renovations were complete, Moto were ready to build the first real Moto service station, and plans were made to build Wetherby services, Moto's biggest at that point, and you can see what it looks like in my service station tour of Wetherby. Now the UK was sorted, Moto moved on to Europe. By 2007, Moto ran over 30 sites in Europe and 30 sites in the UK, with Moto being branded at 31 locations in Italy, for example. Now, these European services made Moto even more money, so back in the UK, they were able to open Wetherby services in 2008, and wanting to expand even more, Moto purchased Winchester services from Roadchef in 2008 as well. Now Moto owns 35 service stations in the UK, and they weren't done there. They rebuilt the old Cherwell Valley services in 2011 on the M40, making it nice, bright and modern and new. Moto even bought out a truck stop operator called Poplar 2000, a deal including 2 truck stops that Moto can add to their portfolio, Barton Park on the A1M and Lim. Tours all on the channel, by the way, as well. And once again, Moto kept buying more and more and more, including a full purchase of Leeming Bar Rest Area in 2014. And following a small rebrand in 2020, Moto just kept expanding, with the opening of their flagship site, Rugby, in 2021. which is one of 3 super sites to be brought out in the future. So, speaking of the future, as with all operators, it's very exciting, with Moto planning 2 more super sites in the future. These are Basingstoke on the M3 and Sawtree on the A1M, already announced to contain Costa, Burger King, KFC, M&S and Greggs. So there'll be some great new service stations, I'm sure, when they open one day. And obviously I do wish Moto the best for the future, and I'm sure there'll be many exciting developments in the future as well. So anyway, now the interesting history is out the way, we'll next move on to the logo history. Now Moto, as a fairly new company, only being founded in 2001, has only really had 2 logos in its history. The first is the much-loved, popular and famous Moto Man, who was introduced from Moto's inception since 2001, and we can see the Moto Man scrolling on screen now. And then in 2020, Moto had a super large-scale rebranding. So in 2020, the Moto Man was removed from the logo entirely, and it became a simpler Moto name with the smile underneath. Now, Moto is a big fan of their new smile logo, and have been slowly rolling it out across all of their service stations, with the old Moto Man being slowly removed, taken down, and unfortunately for those fans of Moto Man, retired. But if you do know where to look, you might be able to find them before we get removed completely. Now, before I move on, it's also interesting to note that Moto were the first operator to advertise internal retail outlets on their signs. They did this as early as 2005 and paved the way for future operators to do the same, notably Roadchef and Extra. So anyway, next we come to Moto's brand partners. These include KFC, Pret, M&S Foods, Greggs, Burger King, Charlie Asian Kitchen, WH Smith and Costa. And oh well, time has come for the list of Moto service stations, and there sure is a lot, so make sure you're comfortable. So let me give this a go then. Birch, Blythe, Barton Park Truck Stop, Bridgewater, Burton and Kendal, Cardiff West, Cherwell Valley, Cheveley, Doncaster North, Donington Park, Port of Dover, Exeter, Ferrybridge, Frankley, Grantham North, Heston, Hilton Park, Kinross, Knutsford, Lancaster, Leaming Bar Rest Area, Lee Delamere, Lim Truck Stop, Medway, Peace Cottage, Reddington, Rugby, Sawtree, Scotch Corner, Severnview, Southwaite, Stafford North, Stirling, Swansea West, Tamworth, Thurrock, Tiverton, Todd Hills Rest Area, Trowell, Washington, Wetherby, Winchester and Woolley Edge. And additionally, Moto are the owners of 2 Eurogarage service stations that they just lease out to Eurogarage, and they are Saltash and Warminster services. And yeah, they're all owned by Moto. So that does bring us to the closing stages and the Motorway man's favourites. So my favourite Moto service station has got to be Rugby on the M6, and I can officially reveal as well that Rugby is not just the best Moto service station, it is the best service station, because in my opinion that is my favourite service station that I have ever been to. I had the pleasure of visiting Rugby last year, and hopefully someday we'll visit together again. And I would also like to say that Basingstoke, Moto's new development, looks like it's going to be great when it's done. So anyway, that's going to be a great one, and I look forward to visiting Basingstoke services when it's done. So anyway guys, I do hope you enjoyed the video, I always appreciate it. Make sure you stop by on Sunday to watch my Rise and Fall of Granada episode. Come back next Wednesday for a new service station tour. But until then, I'll catch you in the next one. Make sure you're subscribed and give me a thumbs up. Goodbye.